This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to TopCatTeamSales.com. That's TopCatTeamSales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Thank you for downloading another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, endorsed by Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, John Kasich, and all the other Republicans. Marco Rubio.
I think that's the one you forgot.
We are Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz, there you go.
Donald Trump. We are the podcast endorsed by all the candidates. Can you believe that?
Oh, my God.
I am the Doc, John Macaroon. My co-host is here, as always, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
Dude, I am scared for the next 4 years. All those people you named, one of them is going to become a president. Do you realize that? I seen one of the funniest memes on Facebook last night. It was in regards to Donald Trump, and it said, there's no way, it was like 2016, there's no way Donald Trump's going to win president. And then it was 2017. Donald Trump can't do that. 2018, this is the Hunger Games brought to you by Donald Trump. It's insane. Dude, seriously, one of those people are going to become president? None of them seem qualified.
Is it odd that as this podcast is dropped, I'm kind of excited tonight for the Republican debate at Fox Theater. I was looking through the paper today having some coffee, and it said that all of 50 tickets are going to be released to the public when there were 21,000 requests. I was one of them. I put in a request, but I didn't think 21,000 people would put in a request. And of all the tickets available, there's only 50 to the general public.
That's crazy.
That's likely meaning that the doc is not going to be in the building tonight.
Well, they're missing out. They're missing out. That's for sure. You'd have brought some liveliness to it. That's for damn sure.
And I'm thinking you should tune in because Megyn Kelly and Donald Trump might go head-to-head again. Because I think it'll be the first time that she's moderating a debate since that whole fiasco. So there might be some fireworks going on.
Aren't you a fan of Megyn Kelly?
I'm a fan.
Yeah, you like
I'm
her.
not sure exactly what she does because sometimes I'm not really listening to what she's saying.
Right, you're
just going,
staring.
wow, she cut her hair, and she looks lovely, but she is definitely a very good reporter, and she has a lot of interesting guests, and sometimes causes controversy. But I think a lot of people are talking bad about her because she kind of said that Trump had no chance, and now he's leading.
Oh,
so
boy.
Journalistic credibility, a little bit down on her, but she's still got, plus the fact that now she's like all high and mighty when people are kind of saying like, hey, now we see all those pictures where you were kind of being all risque and looking all sexy. I was like, oh, dang, that's good looking photos.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're all big and bad reporter now. So those pictures are still there, but it's going to be a fun debate. I'm looking forward to it.
Have you been following, speaking of that, have you been following any of the Aaron Andrews trial?
I had that on the quick hits maybe list today. I was just kind of fascinated with the fact that, how the defense is going to tackle this to try to avoid her getting $75 million. And very professional, the defense lawyer's like, so you said this is going to hurt your career. So didn't you get a endorsement deal with Diet Mountain Dew? Didn't you get an endorsement deal with X? Didn't you also get an endorsement deal with Y? So tell us again how this has hurt your career. But the other angle is that she's going with is that it is causing her severe anxiety and that it's affecting her life, which is true. But I think the hotel has a legitimate case saying that how is it their fault? I mean, the fact that might get them in trouble, the fact that maybe they gave out her room number to this guy, that's a big hitting point. But I think the hotel has a strong argument saying that, hey, this is a guy that was deranged and took advantage of the system, and this is what happened. I feel like settlement. This case feels settlement to me. Not 75, but she's getting paid.
Yeah, she's going to get paid. I think you're exactly right. I mean, that guy kind of went through all kinds of things to get the information to get next to her room, and then the things he actually did, creepy. Just straight up creepy. That's the only things you can say, man. It's creepy.
All important question. Did you spend 5 minutes checking out the footage of this guy's work?
Oh, back when it was released? Oh, yeah. Everybody did. Everybody did. I mean, Dude, how long ago was this? This was like 8 years ago, right?
Long time ago.
So I was 24. Dude, I was 24. Yeah, I mean, come on. Jeez. You know I got a problem with half-naked women running around? And she was fully naked, so I had a big problem. I mean, it was actually a little problem. But whatever. Penis jokes aside.
All right.
What are we going to get into today?
We got a huge podcast today. We're going to talk about the Pistons, their resurgence. They've, after the initial, getting to know each other phase with Tobias Harris after that trade, they've reeled off 4 straight, and a huge game occurred Wednesday night versus San Antonio. We'll talk about the resurging Pistons. We have an interview with George Malik of KuklasCorner.com. He's got the Malik report. He's dialed into the Red Wings. We'll get a chance to catch up with him, talk about the Red Wings and their recent play, and maybe the emergence of a stronger backup goaltender. And also, we'll end the podcast talking about Will Bronson's mock draft. I know that you're definitely into it. After the combine ended, now a lot of other news and notes were revealed, and I'm fascinated to get a look at it. So let's get right into it before we chat it up with George Malik, the Pistons. The biggest difference that you see now is the offense is a lot smoother with Tobias Harris. What you're seeing is, obviously the first couple games you could give them to kind of get to know each other, and the injury to Anthony Tolliver actually might have been a blessing in disguise, because we had said that the Pistons were not going to start Tobias Harris. But in the end, because of the injury, he was forced. And since he's been a starter now, they've reeled off 4 straight, and he is outstanding. The offense is running so much smoother. Reggie Jackson is facilitating more because he has another option. So the offense, you can see, is a little bit more smooth in terms of Reggie Jackson facilitating earlier in the shot clock. The shot selection is much better, and they're able to really, and the wins have been outstanding versus Cleveland, Toronto. That Milwaukee game was solid. I'm liking what I've seen so far this last week for the Pistons.
What a difference a week makes. I mean, honestly, they go from being on a 5-game skid to a 4-game winning streak. They're taking on San Antonio. I mean, that's going to be a huge game. We'll see what happens there. That happens Wednesday. Honestly, man, the thing that I see that the Pistons are doing right now so well is they're playing defense. And that defense helps transition into offense. And you're right, Tobias Harris has been a huge key. It's amazing what a guy who can get his own shot will bring to a team. Also, it's amazing how this offense works when Stan Van Gundy has the pieces that he needs. It's all about ball movement and creating openings. And that's kind of what they've done now with Tobias Harris, especially these last couple games. Big thing for me moving forward is they have to keep playing defense. Tobias Harris has to keep doing what he's doing. I mean, I think he is the reason that this team is now a playoff contender. I'm not really sure how you feel about that, but he's a huge difference. And that defense, man, I'm telling you, you got to bang down low. You got to play tough. It's going to translate into offense, which is a big deal. And that's what they need right now.
What you're seeing is a team that's got a little bit more confidence. And what you're seeing is everybody's elevated their game. In recent games, a lot of the starters are getting double digits. And a point that you're seeing is Andre Drummond hasn't been absolutely abysmal at the free throw line. He's kind of kicked it up a little bit. In the last week, I believe he's shooting about 44% from the free throw line. And his ability now to actually get those extra points at the free throw line and his defensive prowess and stepping up his game has also allowed this team to really utilize that inside-out game. So everybody stepped up, which is really, really good. Now, we all thought that once Stanley Johnson went down that, okay, there's going to be issues. But the Pistons rallied, and the emergence of Bullock has been excellent. The additions, the guys on the second unit, have come on and also carried this team. So, in essence, what you're seeing is a team that's kind of now coming into form, playing a better brand of basketball, and the part that's really exciting, there are not that many games out of 3rd or 4th place in the East. The East is so jumbled up that with just a 4-game winning streak, that's all it took. You went from 9th, now you're in that logjam for 6th, and you're only 2 to 3 games out of being in that 3rd spot. Now, I do believe that the game versus San Antonio is going to be really tough. 28-0 at home. San Antonio is dominant. It's, Wednesday night, prime sports viewing, and I'll get your opinion on it a little bit later about, are you going to peek into the Wings Chicago Blackhawks or the Pistons San Antonio Spurs? Both right there, starting time, 8 o'clock, Wednesday night. I'm fascinated to get your opinion on what you might peek into if you could only peek into one. But I'm really excited with the Pistons, with what they've been doing. I think they can carry it over, and they might even be competitive versus San Antonio.
Yeah, I expect them to be competitive against San Antonio. I mean, this is, honestly, it's a bipolar basketball team. Either they're up or they're down. The thing, though, is if they're playing defense, that offense gets rolling, they're up, and they have a great chance to win. They've got all the pieces to make a run, to make a playoff run. I'm not going to say to win a championship because you got Golden State, you got Cleveland with LeBron James, who is arguably one of the best top 3 basketball players in the NBA right now. I mean, you've got Toronto, who's playing out of their mind. Detroit just beat them, which was a huge win. But you've got a lot of good teams ahead of Detroit right now. But Detroit has all the makings to get on a run and sit there and make lives really difficult for other playoff contending teams. They'll be competitive against San Antonio. I'm not expecting them to win, however. What I am expecting to see, though, is I'm expecting them to show up. I'm expecting them to play. Now, a big issue with this team is they have a very short bench because they've got guys who are injured. They had that voided trade earlier with the Houston Rockets, and that's left them basically down a man. They've gone to the D-League, picked up a couple pieces, brought them in, and those pieces have worked out. But in the long run, do you see anybody out there who could come in and help solidify that spot at all?
That's a tough thing. I don't really see anybody right now that I think that could come in and really make a significant upgrade. I like the fact that even though the team is set up like this, Tobias Harris and what he's done cannot be understated because Ersan Ilyasova was considered the prototypical stretch, the stretch power forward, the stretch 4, as you would say. What teams are doing is they're utilizing guys that are a little bit smaller at the forward position, which causes a mismatch for defenses. And so a guy like Tobias Harris is not your typical forward. So what he does is he allows the offense to cause mismatches because if the defense comes to him, he can kick it back to Reggie and then they can get back inside to Andre Drummond. Or if the defense doesn't give attention to Tobias Harris, Reggie Kaboom can get it to him and he can create his own shot. So a guy like that is a better spot at forward than Ersan Ilyasova. The problem is Ersan was so typical that the defenses could just really address him rather quickly in terms of either minimizing him or dictating to the Pistons what they were doing. Now with Tobias Harris, he's dictating to the defenses what they can do, and it's a much better spot. You're seeing the Pistons offense just look totally different, and it's nice to see. But in terms of getting anybody else, I would just say that with further improvement from Reggie, Andre, KCP, if they continue, if each of them can produce double-digit scoring like they have in the recent games, you can't go wrong.
Well, it's a good thing that I sit there and I have absolutely no life, and I scoured the waiver wire, and I found 3 guys who could possibly help lengthen this bench out a little bit, fill it out, and make them a little bit stronger as they make this push to make it the playoffs. There's a guy out there who just had his contract bought out by Houston. His name's Ty Lawson. Remember Ty Lawson, right?
I do.
Yeah. Ty Lawson shooting 46 from the field, 36 from downtown. Generally, he's a point guard, so he could come in and he could help back up Reggie Jackson there. I think he's a solid pickup, but I don't know if he wants to come to Detroit. That's an issue. There's another guy there, a hometown hero, if you will.
Oh, yes.
Played at UAD. Just got released by San Antonio, the team that Detroit's taking on Wednesday evening. Ray McCallum, Jr., shooting 41% from the field, 32 from downtown. Generally, again, just a point guard. He could come in, he could help back up Reggie, spell some minutes, whatever. But I think the guy who makes the most sense, and it's basically because he's versatile. He can play either the 1 or the 2. Bino Erdith, shooting 46 from the field, 35 from downtown. He can play either the 1 or he can play the 2. And Stan Van Gundy loves versatility, and this guy right here gives him a little bit of flexibility in that backcourt. And he's a veteran as well. So you bring in a veteran presence, you bring in a guy who has just been released. He's looking to sit there, get on a team, and he can help be the difference on this team making a playoff push, I think.
Okay, no, I agree. A lot of talk in the last week about Ray McCallum's son and coming into town, and it might be a good fit. Hometown guy playing in front of the fans. It might be something they look at, but I'm not sure because his game might not be suited 100% to what we're trying to do here. Being released, bounced around a couple times. Now, I know the situation in San Antonio was to allow for a returning player, that it wasn't necessarily due to his abilities, but he's got some upside, and maybe you can take a flyer on a guy like that, maybe 10-day type situation, see what he's got, and then, hey, maybe you extend him a couple times and not have to commit too much to him. But I like what Steve Blake's been doing. He's been proficient. Hasn't been too bad. It doesn't seem like a big drop-off. And then the other part is, though, that's concerning is what role then would Dinwiddie have if you bring in a McCallum? I know that they're trying to mask or trying to, not really talk too much about his leg injury, but I do believe Dinwiddie if he comes back, has the potential to kind of do what McCallum does and maybe even do a little bit more. So that's why when I read it, I'm like, I didn't really take it as seriously because I felt like Dinwiddie sitting in the background, going up and down through the D-League. So I'm like, it's okay. Not a big time issue, but I don't feel like his importance coming in would be that significant. But before we end our Pistons talk, and it's nice to talk about them now this week on Upswing, I believe this is what's going to happen. I believe, around 22 games left or 20 games?
It'll be about 21 when
okay.
this releases. It'll be 21 games.
So at that point, I just feel like the standard, I guess, line that you would believe in, if you're just being cognizant of how they played, the rational opinion would be they're going to go 500. I think that they're going to probably just go 11-11 and finish out the year maybe 1 or 2 games above 43 wins, probably 44 max. So that's just what I think. I think that you've seen what they are. They're going to play well in spurts. I don't know if they have that push with the schedule they got upcoming. So from what I'm seeing right now, they're a team that is what it is. They're a 500 team, and if they can just maybe elevate themselves versus some teams on the schedule late, then they can maybe push to get 43, 44 wins. But like I said, we'll see what happens. Barring any injuries, I'm thinking they get in maybe 7th, 8th seed.
Yeah, they're going to make the playoffs. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to cement it right now. I mean,
playoff team from the Jock.
Here's a hot take for you. They're going to make the playoffs. I do see them making the playoffs. I think what you said earlier this year, didn't you have them at 45 wins?
40. I had them between 41, 45, 46.
Okay, I think 45 wins is doable for this team. I think as long as they show up and they don't play this bipolar basketball, they show up and they play the way they can play, they're going to make some noise. And 45 wins is not too far-fetched. I see them doing that. I see them getting in as a 6th seed still. And I see them being a really tough out for whoever they're going to go up against as the playoffs move forward. So I think the Pistons make the playoffs. 45 wins, no problem. And they become a nightmare for somebody, whoever they're going to take on.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back on the line, George Malik will be here from Kukla's Corner. New to our podcast. I seen him. He's very prominent on Twitter, and Kukla's Corner is a great website. They got great access to hockey and the Red Wings, so we'll check in with him regarding the recent play of your Detroit Red Wings. Stay with us, Doc and Jock, episode 134, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wing shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable. Don't be breaking the brain, break the whole damn table.
Welcome back to the program. On the phone with us right now is George Malik of Kukla's Corner. You can check out some of his work at kuklascorner.com/TMR. George, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're in real good with the Wings. We know that you're out there covering them right now. What's the vibe, seeing how they stood pat at trade deadline?
You know, within the team, it seems that they're very comfortable exactly where they are. And I thought it was really interesting that Jeff Blashill told the media that he had spoken to Ken Holland and then spoke to the players and said that this was the exact team that he wanted these guys on the roster, and that he didn't want any acquisitions to be taking ice time away from the younger players. Obviously, the fans feel a little differently. You could say that more than a couple people are disappointed with what didn't happen, the fact that they didn't go after any rental players, and that the team didn't really substantially upgrade its defense. But I don't really believe that there was anybody on the market that could have been had for anything other than a price that would have really mortgaged the team's future. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that the best decision was to wait until the off season.
Seeing how they waited, do you see the Wings having enough as they're currently constituted to make a deep run in the playoffs?
Maybe.
Okay. Hedging your bet there a little bit.
If things fall into place correctly, and if I think there are 2 big factors. If Gustav Nyquist and Thomas Tatar can score on a regular basis, and if Mike Green and Brad Richards begin to consistently display the kind of promise that with which they were signed, then yes, I think that the Wings could make a big deep run. But those are two big ifs. And thus far, Nyquist and Tatar are just warming up after 2 months worth of inactivity, and it's still hard to figure out where exactly Richards fits and whether Mike Green can reclaim a 30 to 40 point form. Like I said, if things fall into place, obviously if Peter Mrazek continues to play the way that he's been playing, definitely, just because there's so much parity in the league, you really, once you get into the playoffs, if you have a favorable matchup, if things go your way, you can make a couple of rounds regardless of how deep or how shallow your team is. The Red Wings are sort of in the middle there. It's hard to say, and it will depend on what happens at playoff time. So.
Now, George, we're all watching Jeff Blashill in his first season, kind of in an interesting position, being that he had relationships with some of these players who obviously played in Grand Rapids. Now, in his first season, how do you evaluate him? What can you see, maybe similarities or differences to the former head coach in Mike Babcock?
Actually, what I've seen is a lot of similarities with Babcock in terms of his player evaluation, in terms of his systems, some of the line management, a lot of the power play work seems to be very similar and not that effective. He came from the same school. He was talking to Mike Babcock. He came from the same school of player evaluation. He spoke with Mike Babcock just about every day while he was in Grand Rapids. Obviously, the team is a little more aggressive. There's more north-south play, and the defense is encouraged to pinch up going all the way into the offensive zone instead of stopping at the half boards or stopping at the face-off dot and peeling off. So there are some systemic differences, but I think there's more alike than not alike between the two coaches, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that Blashill is a better communicator, though. Babcock sort of told the players what he wanted once, and that was it. And Blashill seems to focus on making relationships more, and he also seems to value player input a little more. That it's more of a two-way street. Babcock would tell you what he expected, and if you weren't making it, he'd tell you what you were doing wrong, and that was it. It was really interesting to read some of the Swedish players speaking at the beginning of the season about Babcock when they were talking to Swedish newspapers and saying how very different it was to have that two-way street. But in terms of the nuts and bolts of coaching, I don't think that they're that different, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because a lot of the Babcock systems work pretty well.
And George, to follow up, how has he been to cover? Now, you're writing for Kukla's Corner. Your reports are very excellent. I've read several of your articles. How has Jeff Blashill been with the media? How accessible has he been? And has he been someone that's been friendly enough to, banter hockey with?
Dealing with Mike Babcock was always a challenge. Dealing with Mike Babcock was always sparring with the media. And it was difficult. It was a lot of fun sometimes to get into the little battles with Babcock, but you got about 3 minutes of his time, and there was always the threat, the sort of implied threat that if he didn't like what you were going to say or his question, the question that you were asking, he'd give you a what's next. And if he didn't like what he heard after that, it was okay, see you guys, and he'd walk off. Whereas Blashill is somebody who seems to be a lot more patient. He will listen to questions. He'll give you a squint that tells you that he's not too thrilled with what you're saying, but he tends to stay around until the media is done asking questions as opposed to giving them what he wants to hear, what he wants to be heard, and then sort of excusing himself. And it's a different vibe. It's refreshing. I mean, as much as I really respected the hell out of Mike Babcock and really admired the man, he was a real pain in the ass to deal with, and Blashill is quite the opposite.
Staying in that same vein, how refreshing is Jeff Blashill for the older players on this team, seeing how, like you said, Mike Babcock was a little bit of a pain in the ass, whereas Jeff Blashill is a little bit more easygoing. Does that maybe help save their legs a little bit? Do they go out there and maybe skate a little bit harder for Jeff Blashill than maybe they would for a guy like Mike Babcock, who is always in their grill and kind of always pressing them and pushing them a little bit too hard?
It's hard to say. The issue that the older players cited when they were talking about Babcock over the summer, and especially Jonathan Erickson, who gave a really great interview with his hometown paper, he said that sometimes it was difficult dealing with Babcock because they'd see how hard he pushed the younger players and how harsh he was towards them, and that was a bit of a bummer. Whereas, Blashill has a very different he has a very different approach toward everybody. And I think that the older players definitely appreciate the new voice. And I guess I should say voices because, the Wings, they brought in new assistant coaches and a new video coach as well. So everybody but Tony Granato is different. They definitely seem to appreciate the ways in which the team goes through its meetings and goes through drills, that things aren't one explanation and done, but whether they're playing harder because of the extra rope that Blashill gives them, or whether that they're playing harder because of the extra rope that Blashill gives the team, I think it's more of the latter.
All right, on Monday, Peter Mrazek missed the game against Dallas with a groin strain. How concerned should Wings fans be moving forward with Peter Mrazek and his groin?
Well, he's going to play tonight, and we're going to see how well he does and whether it holds up. Groins are obviously something that you're concerned about when you're talking about a goaltender. Jimmy Howard's groin was particularly problematic. Chris Osgood's groin always seemed to require eventual hernia surgery, but Mrazek's a little younger. It sounds like what the Wings did, involved more precautionary reasons as opposed to dealing with something that was particularly serious. So tonight will tell the tale, but I'm not particularly worried about it long term.
How important was that win for Jimmy Howard to get in Dallas on Monday?
Gigantic, humongous, big, huge. I mean, he hadn't won since December. He was just struggling so incredibly hard to track the puck, to get into the right position, to stop pucks. And his anticipation was off by a big margin. And to not only deliver a win, but to deliver a command performance while backstopping the Wings too much. I mean, he needed 2 points. I think that was huge for him, and I think that it was equally impressive for the team, that his teammates got to see that they still got a goaltender to believe in. And I think that going forward, that's really going to give the team a lot of confidence in Howard and his ability to step in when Mrazek's not playing.
Now, George, for those that are new to KuklaScorner.com, if they go to that website, what can they find there?
My boss, Paul Kukla, works very hard to really scour the NHL for just about every story that you're really going to need to know about. I know Paul gets up at 6 and works until well after nightfall at night, and he works very hard to again cover all the bases. And I work very hard to cover all the bases when it comes to Red Wings hockey. So it's a nice little 1-2 punch. We try to be the website that you go to if you really want to find out something, what's going on in the world, what's going on in the hockey world, and what's going on with the Red Wings.
George Malik, KuklaScorner.com/TMR for the Malik Report. A great read. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of insight. We hope to chat with you down the line in the future, maybe ahead of a long playoff push.
Thanks. Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
That was George Malik, Kukla's Corner with a K, KUKLASKORNER, KuklasCorner.com/TMR to read George's great work. And like we chatted a little bit about, a great blog, a great website, not only covering the Red Wings, but a bunch of news and notes in the NHL, and it's a great website. Thanks to George for coming on with Doc and Jock. We'll take a quick break. We'll follow up with what was said and talk a little bit of hockey on the second half of this podcast. Looking forward to it. Stay with us. Doc and Jock, episode 134, Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I want to tell everyone out there about DetroitSportsNation.com. They're a great website, and they've been very supportive to all the shows on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. They host all the podcasts. They have great writers that cover all the Detroit teams, all the college teams. Check out their website and support those who support us. DetroitSportsNation.com. The collaboration has been excellent, and it's helped us to continue to grow and have great guests take phone calls. So our collaboration with the Detroit Sports Nation has really been successful, and support those who support us. DetroitSportsNation.com. All right, cuz, I know you're excited talking about the Red Wings getting down to the wire. Man, rivalry game versus the Blackhawks on Wednesday. Lots of news and notes to talk about with the emergence of Jimmy Howard the last couple games, scoring up a little bit, just in a small sample size, just in the last couple games. Now, overall, the scoring is an issue. George brought up a lot of great points with the Red Wings, and I like the comparisons. I like the chat talking a little bit about Blashill in his first year compared to Babcock, because that was the tone. I think a lot of people maybe haven't said it overtly, but kind of along the lines of he was not only tough with the players. Babcock was just a little bit of a standoffish kind of guy with the media, and I really like to talk to guys that work with the players and the coaches and kind of get a sense of how they get treated. And I could only imagine what it's like to just go to work and trying to ask good questions and to be told, hey, what's next if your question isn't good. I would just be like, come on, man, just what's up with all that? But I tried. It would be tough day in, day out to stay professional. And these guys that cover the Red Wings and hockey, they got a lot to put up with. It was a very interesting chat. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was good. Babcock's a prickly pear. I mean,
prickly pear.
Good luck with that, you know? I mean, you could just tell in his demeanor. You know what's messed up, though? Mike Babcock and Jeff Blashill, I know we talked about this before. They sound, if you close your eyes and you just listen, they sound exactly alike. It's kind of eerie and creepy. So it was just weird. But big win on Monday for the Red Wings. Went into Dallas, handled Dallas. Big win for Jimmy Howard. That's 2 games in a row now where he's looked good playing back-to-back here. So do you see his play really elevating his stature on this team right now and maybe changing his position, especially if, I know we talked about Peter Mrazek and his pulled groin, but if that starts flaring up and becomes a problem, do you have more confidence now in Howard and his ability to sit there and fill in?
What was fascinating was the narrative that came out in the papers and on radio a little bit was that, well, it's a long season and Jimmy Howard, no one can play that strong over, 82 games. And I was like, man, Jimmy Howard was brutal. He was, giving up rebounds. He wasn't good at all. He wasn't even worthy of being on the roster. The last couple games, he's looked more like himself, and I really believe that it comes at the right time. Really, what you need from Jimmy Howard is just to be that solid goaltender, not to give up big, fat, juicy rebounds, and to be able to kind of just make those couple saves a game in order to keep a team in it. Now, the NHL is now a scoring league. Teams are free-flowing, and there's a lot more scoring. You wouldn't know that based on what the Red Wings do, but you just need a goaltender that'll keep you in games and to play a little bit more solidly, and that's what we saw. And what's different, too, is that the defense played a little bit better with the return of Cronwall, and they kept it back to basics. They were getting the puck out of the zone. They weren't, really with the Red Wings, and you really see it a lot in all of hockey. When teams struggle, they turn the puck over a lot. And when the Red Wings would get into trouble is when they would pinch in the zone and just that, that odd play where there'd be that odd man rush and they'd get scored upon. And so it wasn't all Jimmy Howard's fault. There were situations where you could say, yeah, the defense kind of hung him out to dry, but there were a lot of goals in games that you could say, Mrazek might have stopped it. So what's important is that, Peter Mrazek has started a lot of games, relatively young in his career, so he needs that spell. We need Jimmy Howard to get us those points. It's not like now we're just throwing him out there in garbage games. We need those 2 points based on the standings and what's going down to get us into the playoffs. So I think that Jimmy Howard's emergence and the way that he's played, he can only build upon. And as long as he doesn't get shelled the rest of the way, as long as he continues to be steady, all you got to do as a backup is just give your team the chance to win. He's got to morph into a backup. I know he probably wants to get out there game in, game out. I know it. He's probably fighting and battling confidence. And I do believe, though, a couple games like that versus Dallas and getting some wins for the team will definitely help you out. Especially, I think they got to win in a shootout, they got to win in overtime.
It was overtime.
Yep. So getting a win like that in forever. I mean, it's been like since early December. That's a long time. So I think he can build upon it for his game. He needs to really prepare himself and morph himself into a backup. It's not a starter anymore. That's it. It's done. With this team, it's Mrazek's team. You see it. I see it. It's Mrazek's team. Morph your mind into prepping like a backup, and he probably doesn't know how to do that.
Plus, in that Dallas game, in that overtime, they ended up getting off the schneid with the power play, which was a very good thing. But watching that game, I watched it very closely, and I watched Jimmy Howard's play in particular. I still think he has a long way to go. I don't think this changes where he's at on this team. He is a backup, like you said.
He's a backup.
He's got a long way to go. He was having trouble tracking the puck. I mean, he would sit there and he would hug the left post, and the puck would come across his face, and he was slow to slide over to the right. And all it is a pad shuffle, and he struggled with it. He made a couple really big saves, but he was still struggling out there. And I don't know if it's just a little bit of rust, or if it's confidence, or if it's just his play is deteriorating, but he is no longer a starter. You need to be able to play when you're called upon. You need to step in. You need to play well when you're called upon, especially for this team where they're at right now. This is Peter Mrazek's team, and going forward, it will be Peter Mrazek's team. Jimmy Howard just has to stay mentally in shape and stay physically in shape, so when he gets called on, he can go out there and he can help this team get wins. Because right now, it's so close, so very close in that Atlantic Division. 1 or 2 wins, it propels you up, and you're almost sitting there in first place. It's amazing how tight this is right now. So he's got to just keep doing what he's doing, keep building on each performance like he has. He had a really good performance against the Rangers, had a really good performance against Dallas. When he gets called on again, he has to have another really good performance. Speaking of really good performances, Andre Athanasiou, amazing.
Nice game, huh?
Amazing. The kid played incredible.
Why hasn't he been in the lineup more? When you look at his speed, you look at what he can do, why is he just riding the train back and forth from Grand Rapids to the Red Wings? Come on now, dude. This guy, I mean, if we're going for the youth movement, just go all the way with it. Put the guy in. And I think the game that he had all those goals, he had limited ice time, less than 10 minutes. I think the least of the forwards out there. Put the guy out there. What's the deal?
Well, you got to look at it like this, okay? 1, he's not a big name. 2, he's a rookie, and he's just kind of trying to find his place on this team. His one asset that he brings that shadows everybody is his speed. I mean, the kid's got amazing speed. He's getting a little bit more ice time. He's now playing with Dylan Larkin, which is a good thing. Those two have a lot of speed together, so they can create off of each other. Actually, one of his goals that he scored was because Dylan Larkin sat there and actually played really physical, took the body on I don't remember the defenseman's name, but took the body on the defenseman. The puck squirted free. Athanasiou comes charging in from our own defensive zone, picks it up, and basically skates around everybody with just a miraculous, dazzling toe drag, and then goes backhander, top corner. Insane. Kid's got talent. This is one of those things, though. I mean, the scouting report on him is he's just a mid-level prospect. And I think that's kind of why he's been a little bit saddlebagged and why he's been on that train riding back and forth in Grand Rapids. It's just he was a mid-level prospect. That was his grade. Every now and then, though, you'll see it. You'll get a player who'll come up to the majors here, come up to the pros, and when they come up, next thing you know, their game it elevates. There's an ability to sit there and do more, be more productive, work at a much faster pace and a much quicker speed, and perform at that level. And he's got it. It's been a very small sample size, but I like what they're doing. I like where he's at. I like what he brings to this team. It's incredible. He's just so fast. Every time he gets onto the ice, honestly, I feel like the defensemen, their buttholes tighten up a little bit and they're on their heels because you never know if he's going to blow by you.
You were on, again, the WXYZ.com sports web chat show on Monday, and you did get into the whole trade deadline situation. It's been talked about.
I feel like I got owned in that segment.
Well, it was interesting in that
we just see it different, that's all.
No. I was very happy with how you reacted because Justin kind of went hard to the paint on you there, talking about, if you're going to go out and get a guy, maybe making a trade or something like that, then it's not maybe necessarily something you want to do when you can pick up someone in free agency outright without making a trade. So it was a good debate, and you made some good points. I think you got a little bit more of the support, I think, online than Justin did in terms of, I think the Red Wings need to make a move. Jakob Kindl was a guy that, was sent off for nothing. So it's kind of disappointing. You're shopping Brendan Smith, and a lot of people around town are saying, well, we put up with him as a developmenting player. You could give him up, and another team could reap the benefits of a guy that might emerge, but he might be a guy that needs that second team, that new environment to kind of emerge. But I agreed that I think, it sends the message, in my opinion, if you don't make a move, that you might not believe this team is a Stanley Cup team, and you don't want to risk trading young players away because general managers have it tough. They have to worry about not only what's going on now, but in the future. And I do believe that Ken Holland, by not making a move, has been burned in the past. I mean, Zidlicki, Cole, David Legwand, he's made moves that really haven't been good. So I would be gun shy knowing that there aren't really, outside of a couple guys that you could bring in that could make a huge difference. So I understand them standing pat, but it doesn't send me confidence as a fan, as a guy watching. It doesn't send to me the message that, hey, we believe. I kind of got a vibe. This is just a first round, second round team, just gonna, tread water, try to keep the fan base happy. But I think a move might have signified, a move towards success, or at least upgrading this team. This team on paper doesn't look like it's good enough. Not enough scoring, not enough defense. And I just think that you had some valid points. Justin also had some valid points, but not making a move. Recap what your thoughts were about that.
I was really frustrated by it. It really
has to be,
me.
yeah.
It really irked me, especially because I feel like what was going on with the trade deadline and with the trade market, I feel like they could have got something for not a whole lot. I mean, this is a guy that I talked about in the one-off podcast I did for the Red Wings special. A guy like Jamie McGinn, I mean, he's been playing really well this season over in Buffalo. I mean, he's got 14 goals, 13 assists. He's been playing well. He's productive. He's a prototypical power forward. He's a guy that you could plug into your first or second line and get some performance out of him. And all that Anaheim gave up was a conditional third-round pick. Honestly, I mean, the Wings have done more with less before, so I don't understand. It's a conditional third-round pick. If they make it to the conference finals, I think it becomes a second-round pick. You're not giving up a whole ton right there, and I don't understand why the Wings didn't get out there, didn't try to, lift up a few stones, look and see what they could get. I mean, there were defensemen out there that they could have got as well. A guy like Chris Russell they could have picked up. They weren't even in the bidding for this. It just, all of it is really frustrating to me. Really blows my mind why the Wings didn't do more. I really felt like
the salary
Ken Holland sat on his hands.
The salary cap ramifications were kind of important in that it was going to be a little bit tight to make those kind of moves. And if you look at it like this too, you have to realize the Wings picked up a large portion of Jakob Kindl's salary. 15%.
Right.
15%, yeah, this year and next.
Jared Stahl's contract, the Carolina Hurricanes picked up 50% of his contract. So there were ways you could have worked it. I just felt like Ken Holland just kind of sat on his hands and was like, well, if anybody wants anything, they'll call us. No. Like, if you have something out there that you want to possibly upgrade or change a little bit, and I guess that's probably where the issue comes in. He doesn't want to upgrade anything or he doesn't want to change anything. He's satisfied with what they have. But again, I can see an early round exit unless Peter Mrazek absolutely stands on his head. And like you said, maybe they don't feel like they're ready to win a Stanley Cup. I don't see them winning a Stanley Cup this year, but we've talked about it time and time again. The NHL playoffs are one of the greatest things around because all it takes is a hot goaltender and some timely goals and a puck bounce here or there to sit there and win a championship. That's all it takes. The Los Angeles Kings won 2 Stanley Cups entering as the 8th seed. And one of those times, they didn't get in until the final 2 days of the season. So I don't know what Kenny's thinking. I don't know what Kenny's doing. Just kind of sat on his hands and has me scratching my head.
Right now, the way they've been playing, do you kind of feel like this is a team that could elevate their game? Or, do you feel like, again, this is going to be if the Red Wings make the postseason, I feel like we're going to be in for another long 7-game tedious series. And it's going to be something where if they don't get secondary scoring, if they don't get a bunch more production from guys like Helm, guys like Abdelkader, guys like Tatar and Nyquist, then you could be looking at another first-round exit. And I think the fan base is on the verge of becoming not really a lot of conversation and heat regarding the Red Wings. And I think that
they're getting fat and sassy is what it is.
Yeah. And
I mean, you don't miss the playoffs this many times. Honestly, when we had that conversation with George there, the way that some of those questions that we phrased them, and I didn't even realize it until we were in the middle of the interview there. it's expected that they make the playoffs.
Yeah.
At this point in our lives, we expect them to make the playoffs no matter what. So even when we phrase those questions, it's so when the Wings get in, it's not if, it's when. And that's kind of, I think, where most of Hockey Town is right now.
One or
Everybody's
two injuries, and it could be done.
Yeah.
Whew.
So, no, I think you're right. In order for them to get on a serious run and do some serious things here, their secondary scoring has to step up. Guys like Tatar, Nyquist, Abelcator's got to be a little bit more proficient out there. Helm's got to come up with a couple goals now and again, These guys have to get a little bit healthier, and they've got to start putting the puck in a little bit more. Defense has to tighten up as well. And these things all sound like cliches, but this is exactly what has to happen for this team to get better. I think Mrazek, him playing in that Tampa series last year really helped elevate his game. And I think going into this year, when he goes into the playoffs, he'll have that underneath his belt, and I expect him to play out of his mind because he's shown it. He can get hot for a 10-game stretch and play lights out. And all he's got to do is just win 4 games here, win 4 games there, win another 4, and next thing you know, you're playing for the Stanley Cup.
Any inclination for you now? I mean, Ken Holland has a nice contract. I understand that, but there are rumblings. If you're peeking in on social media, at our Twitter page, at Detroit Podcast, around, people that are having discussions in the papers, a lot of people are starting, not vocally, like not so much with a lot of passion, but a lot of people are starting the rumblings of, hey, it wouldn't be a bad idea to just broom Ken Holland aside and make that pitch for hometown guy Steve Yzerman to come back and save this team. Because, Ken Holland has done a great job. He deserves all the respect in the world, and I'm sure the Ilches are going to be loyal. This is just us speculating. But it has been talked about that, hey, Steve Yzerman has done a great job in Tampa Bay. He's getting widely talked about as being a respected head guy and a respected general manager. You think maybe if the Wings don't have a long playoff push, that the talk and the chatter about, hey, pushing Ken Holland aside and bringing back Steve Yzerman might start picking up next year or so?
It'll probably pick up with fans and maybe people who want to sit there and
I'll champion that position. Bring back Stevie Y, damn it.
This is what I want.
He beat us.
I want to see what Steve Yzerman does this next year.
Yeah.
Because he's got a really bad cap situation in Tampa right now. He's got a lot of guys he's got to sit there and sign and try to bring back. He's got Steven Stamkos, who wants $80 million over the next 8 years. So good luck with that. So Yzerman has his hands full. He has his first crisis situation, actually maybe a second crisis situation, because I think Jonathan Drouin was a little bit of a situation there, and he handled that like a straight OG, let's be honest. I mean, he was like, look, guy, you don't want to play for us, that's fine. Just go sit. And never traded him. Never traded the kid. So he's at home sitting there eating pancakes, getting fat on his high horse, and not doing a whole lot.
Tampa Bay's carrying on. The show must go on.
Exactly. So I want to see how Steve Yzerman reacts to this next offseason and what he does and how he tinkers with this team. Because you're right. He's done a very good job in Tampa, and he's built a very good powerhouse down there. But now you got to see how he can evolve that, because this is a situation that Ken Holland kind of got himself into. He was always able to go out there when they had no caps, when there was no salary cap, was able to spend and spend and spend and won championships. Salary cap gets put in. Things kind of changed a little bit. I mean, those first couple years when the salary cap was implemented, he struggled a little bit. And it was trying to get everybody underneath the salary cap and trying to sit there and build this team and tinker with this team and not totally dismantle it, but add to it while not going over what the salary cap and what the salary cap ramifications were. So it'll be interesting to see how Steve Yzerman handles this next stage as his GM tenure.
Okay, so I'll put it to you. You can only watch one game.
Okay.
Red Wings, Blackhawks, Pistons, San Antonio Spurs.
I'm watching Wings Blackhawks, bro.
Seriously?
Seriously. Here's the thing. This is what has my attention. I need to see the Red Wings go out there, because at this point, it's the Capitals are number 1 odds-on favorites to win the Stanley Cup, followed by the Chicago Blackhawks. Capitals are 9-2, Chicago's 5-1. Wings, after not making any moves at the trade deadline, went from being 20-1 odds down to 25-1 odds.
I saw that.
So good luck with the Wings. I need to see how the Wings stack up against Chicago. That's what I have to see. If you can go into Chicago, or you can have Chicago come into your house and you can sit there and you can hang with them and you can beat them, great. And they're going to play Chicago on Wednesday. They're going to play Chicago on Sunday. Chicago is going to come in here on Wednesday night. Wings need to get a W. At least push this to an overtime for me. And let me see you guys do something there. And then when you go on the road to Chicago, I need you to be competitive. I need to see a W.
No,
One of
obviously-
these two games. I need to see a W.
Now, obviously, with most people, they're going to flip back and forth, maybe do, watch one on TV, one on the radio, flip back and forth. Most people now will say, oh, I'll just do picture-in-picture. Don't you got that? I don't have picture-in-picture.
I don't have picture-in-picture either.
So I haven't figured that out with the satellite. I don't think you can even do that. Or you have to do some splitting and all that kind of nonsense. I'm not trying to split no wires, that's for sure.
I'll be bouncing back and forth, but
Yeah.
the Wings Chicago game is going to have my major attention.
See, I'm more fascinated to see the Pistons and the Spurs because this is a marquee matchup against. Now, you could say the Blackhawks are the best team in the NHL. I do think the Spurs, with that 28-0 mark at home, I really think is going to be a challenging thing for the Pistons to go in there and handle their business. And I do think the way the Pistons have handled good teams, they're going to want to go in there and get that W and really play strong. And Tobias Harris going up against, the Spurs and their defense. What does Greg Popovich, the master, have in store for the Pistons? How does Stan Van Gundy match up with what you would call the best coach in the NBA basketball? So I think if I could only watch one, I would peek into the Pistons and Spurs because it could have a lot of ramifications. If the Pistons defeat the Spurs, you might be looking at a long winning streak, and maybe, just maybe, that could be the marquee win that could propel them into some long-term success. So I would go Pistons Spurs. That's just my opinion.
I was really hoping they'd rest Tim Duncan tonight.
Oh, so no, he's not resting?
No.
Oh, man. So before
You're going to get the full squad, man.
So before we get into this mock draft that has me kind of looking funny because I was reading it while we were chatting hockey as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just real fast, we're watching ESPN because the guys were ripping on me for watching wrestling. So I figured we'd watch a little bit of ESPN outside the lines. And, we've talked about the wussification of sports. Outside the Lines running a piece talking about how some teams are going to eliminate tackling from football practice. I'm like, you got to be kidding me right now. Eliminating tackling from practice. What are you going to do? Just eliminate pads, eliminate everything? I was just like, you got to be kidding me right now. They're trying everything humanly possible to protect these players, but eliminating practice, my gosh, no on that. I veto that.
I don't even understand how you do that. I mean, so when you go into a game, you have no idea what it feels like to hit somebody else. You have no idea how to wrap up. You have no idea how to drag anybody down. How do you do that?
It's actually being implemented. Ivy League, in the Ivy League in college football, during regular season practices, no tackling.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Well, that's why no one's going to the Ivy League anyway. So dial tone big time on that. All right, switching gears. Got to recap the combine a little bit and this. CBS.
I love dudes who run around in underwear.
I knew you liked it all the time. It was kind of boring.
Did you see the guy who was, I think his name was Chris Jones?
Jason and Vinny definitely touched on it.
Oh, no. He went running. And,
Rhino time, baby.
Dude, that guy's got a monster hog. Like, you've seen that thing flopping off his thigh, and I was like, oh, God.
There's very rare occasions where three dudes can look around a computer, not watching adult content, and just be like, damn, what the hell? But you had to kind of slow-mo it. It's kind of weird to slow-mo an athlete.
Oh, yeah, looking for another dude's penis. Yeah, that's totally weird. But whatever. The thing is, though, dude, it's a monster.
No,
it looks like he's just dangling his arm between his legs.
Now, before we get into this Will Bronson mock draft, your one or two takeaways from the combine. I just had two, and I'll give them to you real quick. Connor Cook survived the grilling that he had to take. His performance on the field, not stellar, not awful, but he was able to kind of put the rumors to rest and really go through the grilling about, hey, why weren't you the captain? What were some of these personality issues that were coming up? And I do believe he handled himself professionally. And now the talk is going to be, look, you can question me all you want about my character. Look at the numbers on the field. Look at my wins versus solid teams, and that's what's going to win out. Of course, the NFL and these general managers and scouts, they got to do their due diligence. I give them credit for researching them, asking those tough questions, pressing them, and being able to say, hey, listen, what was up with that? How come you weren't a captain as a senior? What happened with you, in the championship game versus Iowa, you going up there on the podium? What happened with all that? You got to do your due diligence, but in the end, you can put up with that a little bit if you're a solid quarterback. Now, he just got to get better personally on his footwork and his abilities to make deep throws because his deep passes weren't all that great in the combine. My second takeaway, Kim Diche probably hurt his stock. His interviews were talked about as the key point negatively in the whole experience of the combine. Coming out openly admitting he took plays off, wasn't fully engaged, had a lot of issues going on. So it raised more awareness because of his frankness and the fact of what he revealed. A guy like that might be a big question mark, might slip into the 20s because of what he said. Jason and Vinny on the Motor City Sports Rant podcast, which comes out every Tuesday, they kind of debated whether we should take a chance on a guy like that. I don't think so, in my humble opinion. I wouldn't take a chance on a guy like that. If the Lions season goes south, he might act up and become a little bit more dangerous. I'm a little bit weary of guys who say they take plays off because I need a gamer, and there's other guys out there that we're going to talk about that we could get. So my 2 takeaways: Connor Cook passed his test, passed his grilling. Kim Diche flunked miserably.
Second, third round, would you take him?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I don't think he's going to slip out of the first round because
I don't either. But
he's looked at widely regarded as one of the top defenders in the draft.
The 2 things I took out of this combine: defense is where most of the talent's at this year, and
exactly.
Jack Conklin really raised his stock at the combine.
No
he had
doubt.
He had the 4th best 40 time. Came in at 5 seconds for offensive lineman. He did a 25 on the bench press, so the kid is super strong. He had a top 10 20-yard shuffle, and I think this combine really helped elevate him into the top 10 of this upcoming draft. And if he was to somehow slip down to 16, I don't think I'd have a huge problem with the Lions taking him there. I don't think it'd bother me because he looks like he's going to be the real deal. All right, so you want to get into this new mock draft that I discovered here?
Yes. First of all, how did you discover this?
Will Brinson's?
Yes. How did you discover this gentleman's mock draft?
Well, he writes for CBSSports.com, and basically what I do is when we're putting together the show prep sheet, I will go to the Google machine and I will type in mock drafts 2016, and I look for one of the more recent ones. Mm-hmm. So this one actually was, at the time when I was searching for it, was the most recent. I know. Since I found this one, Todd McShay came out and released one, and I think he has us taking an offensive tackle.
Taylor Decker, I believe,
yes,
from Ohio State. So reading those 2 has added the fuel to my fire with this guy's, Mr. Will Brunson's mock draft.
All right.
So I'm scanning. Okay, I like it. He's got Conklin moved up to 13. I like it. I like what he's got with the Raiders and the Rams. Good. Then it scrolls up to the Lions, and I look in his blue font on my phone, and it says, what? Laquan Treadwell, wide
receiver, bro.
Hell no, bro. That's it. Invalidated, because by all accounts, every other mock draft has Laquan Treadwell going at least 14th, 15th. He will. There's no chance without the Lions trading up that Laquan Treadwell is there at 16. And even if he is there, you can upgrade the wide receiver position through free agency or the draft. You don't need to draft a first-round wide receiver. So hell no. In my opinion, this mock draft invalidated. And then in the end, and I was scrolling, I'm like, okay, let's just see as compared to Todd McShay's mock draft. And I'm looking, okay, let's look for Taylor Decker. Where does he have him? I'm scrolling, and I'm like, oh, Todd McShay has Taylor Decker going to 16 to the Lions. Will Brunson, nowhere to be found. Not in the first round.
Well, here's the deal.
So what the hell?
So this is what he says about Laquan Treadwell. No one can replace Calvin Johnson, assuming he actually retires, but someone's got to try. Okay, what? No. All right, there are so many holes on this team. You do not need a wide receiver, especially in the first round. However, the pick that goes right after 16, the Atlanta Falcons, he has Reggie Ragland, linebacker, Alabama.
Exactly.
He tallied 220 total tackles and 4 sacks the last 2 seasons for Alabama. Not exactly a modern-day linebacker per se, but Dan Quinn can get a trigger man for the inside of his defense. What do we need? We need a linebacker. Seriously, bro, what are you doing? Will Brinson, what are you doing? This is a horrible mock draft. Absolutely atrocious.
I think that's part of it. Okay, you were looking at it going, okay, this is pretty bad, too.
I thought it'd give us a lot to talk about because with Reggie Ragland going right behind Laquan Treadwell, and Reggie Ragland's a guy that we've talked about before, and I think we're both kind of high on him, and we both have come out and publicly said that we want them to go defense, very defensively heavy in this draft, because that's where all the talent is.
Yeah.
So get defense, and you can address your linebacker issues by getting a guy like Reggie Ragland.
So, yeah, if Martin Mayhew was here, I could see them doing that, and then having the 17th pick be linebacker, 18th pick defensive tackle, 19th pick defensive end, 20th pick outside linebacker, 21st pick defensive tackle. So this draft, everyone is raving about the quality of defensive ends and tackles, and you've just said it. The draft is full of guys that can be impactful on the defense. I see relatively no scenario where they draft a wide receiver to replace Calvin Johnson in the first round, when you can just go back a little bit. Hey, maybe, maneuver yourself to get a Burbridge or get someone else, later in the draft that can replace Calvin Johnson. And, so this, yeah, exactly. So this mock draft, when we look at it, is totally disappointing. And, I'm even
There's a lot
disappointed.
of talk about the Lions possibly taking Laquan Treadwell, which
I'm disappointed with McShay's mock draft
I don't
too.
want it.
Taylor Decker, are you kidding me? Offensive tackle? I understand that, Matthew Stafford was dinged up a lot last year, but you can kind of minimize that by maybe condensing your offense even a little bit more and just kind of running the ball a little bit more, 5-yard outs. You don't have to, you don't have to run an expansive deep threat offense if you don't have Megatron. So you can work to the offensive line strengths of the guys that you do have or the guys that you're going to bring in. You can just, do more rollouts, and you've seen it. Was Stafford knocked around a whole hell of a bunch in the last, 8 games when they went 6-2? Didn't look like it. Why? Because he was getting the ball out super quick. They were super efficient. Theo Riddick was getting way more involved in the offense, and you've seen Golden Tate yards after catch galore. So, and that opened up Calvin for the big plays. So I was pretty satisfied with the line towards the second half of the year. Now, if they're going to roll out and play the way they did the first half of the year, then you're going to look to upgrade it because they almost got Stafford killed. And I predicted, one of my bold predictions I remember now was that Stafford was going to blow his ACL out.
That's true.
Basically,
You did say that.
what they were going to do. So I'm disappointed with McShay and this Will Brunson's mock draft. Hell no. Defense. If it doesn't say defense, I'm going to have a problem.
Yeah, they have to go defense. I mean, that's the one thing that this team has right now that's really good, right? I mean, the last 2 seasons under Terrell Austin, this defense has catapulted up the NFL rankings. It's been one of the things that you can kind of lean on. There was 2 seasons ago, it was the reason that you were able to win as many games as you were. And last season, it helped you win a couple games as well. So why not bolster this defense? And you've seen it. Who won the Super Bowl? The team with the best defense did, right? And who else lost the Super Bowl? The team with the second best defense. I mean, the formula's right there. The formula's there. Build through the draft and get a solid defense. That's what you need to do.
You said it and you know it. And again, I'm still, as we speak, a lot of people are talking about potential. If you look at today's Free Press, Dave Burkett has a long list of potential. There's a long list. But I'm not ruling out the possibility of trading, and I've said it on other podcasts, and I still believe that there's a move to be made. Maybe he moves up. Hey, maybe Bob Quinn doesn't roll the dice and go down and get more picks. Maybe he gets the guy that he feels is the most impactful guy, and maybe he'll do that. But I don't know. Part of me is not fully confident just yet that they're going to actually pick at 16. So, the Lions got to do a lot of work, man. They got a lot of work to do. I'm getting more satisfied with Bob Quinn. I feel like, though March 9th is when? Today's the 2nd. Next Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we will have a chance maybe to potentially look at if the Lions do not cut Calvin Johnson, what they could do if they actually have to pay out that $11 million and not use it for the future. And I'm shocked with people's reaction to it. And people are like, we got $30 million. Our Twitter page was really anti my comments on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. I was fully saying, hey, if you could have $41 million as opposed to 30 to spend.
Don't you want that?
Don't you want that? More money to spend, and $11 million could get you 2 contributing players. No, it's all good. Keep Calvin and spend 30. I was like, what kind of argument is that? One person made a great argument, though, and was very bright and took us to task a little bit, and I like the argument. The argument was, nowadays, any impactful guy that you're going to want to spend $6-7 million on, or upwards of 11, has been franchised. Von Miller, a lot of the guys that have potential, that you could want to bring in here are going to be tagged anyway. So are you really going to want to spend $7 to $8 million on a B-level talent? And I said, you know what? That's a great point, because I was looking at, why not go after Norman from Carolina, tagged, Von Miller, tagged. And I was like, you know what? That's a great point. In that what's really out there for the Lions to go out and get isn't $7-8 million in value. So I can understand that point of view, but hey, parlay it into $3-4 million guys. Hey, you can do something like that. But I would say in this argument, cut Calvin Johnson and make the move yourself. Be proactive. Don't let Calvin hold you hostage. If the Lions go past March 9th and they don't cut Calvin Johnson, huge problems. I'm on the side of just cut him. If you don't want to make the decision, listen, there's no loyalty in sports, man. You got to cut him. Cut his ass.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Calvin at this point is almost holding this team hostage. I mean, honestly,
by now you should know.
Exactly. At this point, you have to let them know, because he factors into how you address your draft, how you address free agency, and not just by the dollar amount that he adds to your cap space, but because you have different needs and different holes that you have to fill. Some things are more important than others. So if he leaves, obviously wide receiver is something that needs to be addressed. Okay? If he leaves, does it elevate it? A little bit, yeah. If he stays, wide receiver still needs to be addressed, but it's a much less need that needs to be addressed readily. So it just kind of falls to the back of the list, and you can maybe address this later on, either in free agency, or you can get an undrafted player, or you can go draft somebody. I mean, again, I think this draft going into it, you need to be going defense, maybe look for something on offense at that point. I think that they need to address the backup quarterback position, possibly look for the future, because unless you're looking to really extend Matt Stafford out and pay him a whole lot of money for a whole little bit of production, I don't know if you really want to do that. I don't want to do that because now you're tied up again. So I think you need to look at possibly drafting a quarterback in this draft. I think you need to look at addressing the defensive line. You need to look at addressing linebacker. You need to look at addressing safety. I mean, those are 4 positions right now that I just named off the top of my head. We haven't even got to wide receiver yet. And like I said, if Calvin's not here, I think wide receiver becomes more of a pressing need, and you can possibly go out and get somebody in free agency. So it doesn't hamper you when it comes time to the draft. So he needs to let them know. Honestly, he's holding them hostage at this point, and it's awful.
Whew, there's so much. I was really surprised. Some of the radio stations talking about it's a slow period, talking politics, stuff like that. I was a little bit surprised. There is a lot of Detroit sports topics to get into, to chomp on. And I know a lot of people, in media circles will say that February is a slow time, and a lot of hosts and stuff like that take vacations and things like that, around this time because there's not a whole lot going on. But you really looking at it, there's a lot to sink into. The Tigers still got their early spring training games, looking at some of the, minor nicks and cuts of some of the starters. You got the Pistons wings, each and every game you can break down. You got the combine. There's a lot going on still. And I'm loving it. I'm still loving breaking down all the sports. Even I don't feel like, we've had all that much trouble coming up with things in Detroit sports to talk about. So it's I don't feel like this is a slow time. Do you?
No,
it's not slow.
Not at all.
I don't feel like
there's a ton going on.
A ton going on.
By the way, can we get back to Todd McShay's mock draft real quick?
Yeah.
So I was frantically while we were speaking, I was frantically looking for some insight on who was it? Taylor Decker.
Yep.
And I found what I was looking for. And you tell me, do you think the Lions need more of a left tackle or more of a right tackle for this team going forward?
Oh, everyone that looks at Riley Reif says that dude needs to be switched positions from left to right, right?
Exactly. So this is what an AFC regional scout said about Decker. And if the Lions take him, I probably won't be ecstatic. I hope you kill this guy because I would love for him to fall to us. He's strong and tough. You can beat him up with this or that, but he'll be a long-term starting right tackle in the league for years. We need a left tackle, bro. So you're not really helping us.
So boo for you.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of McShay's draft there either. So
boo for this week's potential mock drafts. Let's see if next week's that we look at will be much better. Hopefully you heal up. I know you were struggling a little bit.
Sorry if you hear any coughs in the background. I've been trying to hold my coughs.
Snow again wasn't bad the last couple weeks, man. So
no, it wasn't too bad. I'm getting tired of shoveling snow, though. I went out last night and shoveled it.
Yeah.
And that took a good hour, and then I went out this morning and shoveled some more. That only took about a half hour, so that was good, but I'm getting tired of snow, man. And I can't handle the weather changes. Honestly, welcome to Michigan. Hang out for a week, you'll experience all 4 seasons.
Yeah, no, just listen to this. When I was in high school, as you all know who are listeners of this podcast, I played high school tennis.
That's right.
And
tennis pro right here.
Tennis guy. Our season would start with practices running, laps, stairs, March 1st. Okay, so we would get out on the court, start hitting balls lightly, playing against each other March 1st. There was never a time when it was snowing like this. It might have been rainy, spring weather, but the season now, winter kind of in Michigan's going from like January to March. I don't like that.
It's been a real weird winter too, man. It's been really mild.
Last couple winters have been like that.
Now the last couple weeks we've been hit with a ton of snow.
No, snow in March doesn't feel right. No, man. I thought it was supposed to be 6 weeks and done. What the hell happened? Groundhog. You lied to me. Damn.
You're so mad about the groundhog.
Damn groundhog. Now, real fast before we get out of here. I know that you're a conspiracy guy. So,
I am.
So I don't know if you've heard the story. Have you heard the story about the New York Times editorial staff and Trump, him sitting down off the record and things like that?
No.
Oh, okay. Got it. A little.
I don't like a lot of politics, by the way.
Yeah, so
just because it makes my
it
mind
piqued my
move.
interest because I saw a blog and I'm like, oh, Adam would think this is interesting. So Donald Trump sits with the New York Times editorial staff and off the record has kind of maybe on tape said that some of the things he's saying is just for kind of effect and that he's not really means some of the things that he's saying. So they're sitting on this audio, and Cruz alluded to it yesterday in his speech, and he said that, he should just release the audio and be honest with the American people that, hey, if he's just saying things to say it, that he should be honest. But it was off the record. So the New York Times is potentially just slowly but surely leaking it out there and not releasing it so that he can become the guy. So that when the time
GOP
comes,
candidate.
yeah, he can be the candidate, and so when he's actually going to run for president, they can lay the boom on him and actually come out with the XYZ of all the stuff. Slowly but surely leaking. Look into it, and we'll talk more about it next time. But
check it out.
There is audio now, I guess, of him kind of being a little bit truthful and candid about some of the things that he's saying, and the New York Times is sitting on it, but it's ethically improper for them to release it because it was an off-the-record conversation, and he was kind of spouting off and, letting loose a little bit and saying that maybe he's not as truthful. So look into it, and we can talk a little bit more about it next time.
Is there any of these candidates that you're kind of like, well, I like him a little bit more than that one?
No.
Dude, they're all atrocious.
Not
like
great.
all of them.
I'm hardcore into the entertainment value. I'm all the opinion that government's not going to do a whole heck of a lot.
you want it to be Hillary Clinton and you want it to be Donald Trump going at it?
That's it.
Where they both just sit there and they're just
You're a liar. You're hey, contribute more to me. You're this, you're that.
Oh
and,
man, it's gonna be just opening up the closet and throwing dead skeletons at people.
That's it. That's what it's about, man. That's all I can say is I'm all for cutting taxes. So if you say that, you might lean to get my vote. Cut taxes, damn it. Or if you want to be socialist, throw some to my business. That's all I can ask for.
Right.
How do I get my hands on some more of it? For the Jock, Adam Straczynski, another fun podcast just flew by, talking Wings, Pistons, Lions, all good stuff. For the Jock, Adam Straczynski, I am the Doc, John McAroon, episode 134 in the books. Thank you for everyone who's been downloading. See y'all next time.
Go Wings, go Pistons. 2, 3, 1.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head, they counsel me, they understand, they talk to me. They talk to me, they tell me things that I will do, they show me things I'll do to you.